Hello and welcome to this small video on IGCSE Biology. In this video here, I'm going to go over the extended exam from March this year, 25. And I'll try to show you how to get the points in the multiple choice exam. Of course, knowing the syllabus is a very big thing, and reading the syllabus, seeing the figures, but also there are some techniques to how to answer the question. I'll try to show how I would do it. Again, any mistakes here and mine alone, and the best way of getting a good campus grade is studying. But here we go. Okay, so here we have a look at the first one here. And there's quite a lot of information in this one here. We are told there are 4 species of bacteria, P, Q, R, and S, are compared. The first we're told that the species P and Q have a more recent common ancestor. So if we draw a tree here, we have our P here and our Q have a common ancestor we don't know about. They have a more recent common ancestor than either species have with R. So R doesn't have the same one, it's further away. And we're told that species S developed recently from P. So we have S here. So they ask, which species has least similar base sequence in the DNA compared to the other 3? Well, P, Q, and S are quite close related, while R is further away. So the correct answer here will be C, R. The next one here through an arthropod, and we can see here it has 4 pairs of legs, which leaves us into A, arachnids, as this is a scorpion. You know also see it has exoskeleton, but that goes from all the arthropods. But the 4 pairs of legs here is a certain sign we are looking at arachnid. The next question here is one of those questions I sometimes see students get wrong, because the important thing is here we should either say A, B, C, or D. Sometimes I see students they start marking the different parts and say, oh, we have something here, we have something here, something here, something here. It's very important, always just mark A, B, C, or D. So if we look at what can be found in both plant cell and bacteria cells, can we find cell membrane in both? Yes. Can we find cell wall in both? Yes. Can we find ribosomes in both? Yes. Can we find plasmid in both? No, plasmids are only in the bacterial cell. So the only one has a no here is number D. So D here is our answer. Because, yeah, this says yes, yes, and yes, and no. So this gives the right answer because we have the cell membrane, the cell wall, the ribosomes, but no plasmid. And then we're told a cell here is 60 micrometers. How much is that in millimeters? And that will here be our C because there's 1,000 between them. So the next one here looks at we have 4 mesophyll cells and we have water moving through them. So we can see the direction here, B, X, Y, and Z. So water will move from a lower to a higher water potential. So we see here we go from higher to lower, it can't be A. And here we go from, we have to look at the direction, movement here, and here we see we go from 300, 400, 600. So this will be a good choice, say B. As we here move from a lower to a higher water potential. And then we asked in number 6 here is asked, 3 processes are listed. Molecules and ions move across a membrane. Molecules and ions move by proton carriers, and ions taken up by root hairs. Which of these processes can, not must, but can involve active transport? And active transport is transport against the gradient. We're using energy, and actually this can be both A, B, and 1, 2, and 3. So this will here be the answer. So here we have to look at a section of chromosomes. We are going to tell they contain 4,500 bases, and there's 1,450 of those are G. So here it's important to remember that G and C they match together. So if there are 1,450 G's, then that's also 1,450 G's, which will give us 2,900. And if we say 4,500 minus 2,900, and we divide that by 2, we are left with 800. So there are 800 left here. So answer here will be A. Which chemical element is found in protein but not in carbohydrates? Well, carbon, yes, we have carbon in carbohydrates. Hydrogen, yes, we have that. Oxygen, we have that. Nitrogen, well, nitrogen is the one thing we'll find only in proteins. So this is one of those questions where it's easy to find out which answer is not the right one. So they ask which statement describes enzymes. Enzymes are carbohydrates. No, they're not. They're proteins. Enzymes are involved in metabolic reactions. This might be it. Enzymes decrease rate of reaction. No, they increase it. Enzymes have the same shape as active site as a substrate. No. So this leaves us with the only possible answer being B. Enzymes are involved in metabolic reaction, and yes, they are. So quite often, these questions here, sometimes it's easier finding the one who's not the right answer. This one here has a lot of information. It shows us graphs where we can see respiration and photosynthesis, rate of it, photosynthesis and respiration. And photosynthesis is a solid line and respiration is the dotted line. And we just shown the rate out here in arbitrary units. We know that photosynthesis is in the daylight. So already here we can see that C, it can't be C because it does have photosynthesis both during day, night, and light. Then we have 2 here who shows that respiration and photosynthesis follow each other during night and day. And that sounds weird. So I won't go with either of these one. This one here, on the other hand, shows that we have respiration going on at all time. And then we have photosynthesis going on during the day. And this one here is therefore our correct answer because you will still have respiration going on at night, as we see here, and this is the only one who shows respiration going on at night, so A is our only possible answer. So here we are shown a photo from a microscope. It shows a part of the lower surface of a leaf. And then they're asked what structure we can see. Is it palisade, spongy mesophyll? Well, we won't really be able to see them from the lower surface. It's a xylem. Well, that's not really in the leaf. We'll see that only in the vascular bundle. Could it then be guard cell? Yes, we have an opening here and around it. So yeah, it is indeed a guard cell. And then we have one here with diet. The student is told that diet is not balanced and there might be a risk of scurvy. And here we have to remember scurvy is lack of vitamin C. And this, we're given 4 options. Should they drink more milk? It's nice, but it's not what I ask here. The student to drink more milk, which would provide more vitamin C. The amount of vitamin C in milk is not substantial. The student should eat more citrus fruit, which will provide more calcium. No. And the student should eat more citrus fruit, which will provide more vitamin C. Yes. This one here will be our answer. So again here, I think it's quite often easier to see the one here it can't be and figure out which one are obviously false, and then you can find which one is true. I think this is a good guide often to these multiple choice questions. Okay, and here we are shown 4 types of human teeth. The incisor for cutting, the canine also for cutting and ripping apart, and then we have the premolar and the molar for grinding. And they ask which teeth are used for grinding food. Well, that is our premolar and our molar, so our only option here is D. The next one is a question that dwells into human digestion system, and we ask which substance can cause the change in pH when a food enters the small intestine, so we will have a low pH in the stomach. So amylase, well, amylase is already in the mouth, so let's not go for that. Gastric juice, gastric juice is in the stomach. Oh, bile. Yes, bile is actually released and is one of the things that changes the pH so other enzymes can start doing their work. Okay, the next one here is one of those where it's a good idea to look at which one it can't be. We ask which condition causes the highest rate of transpiration. So A and B has high temperature. It can be both of them. C and D both have low temperature, and we know it's not one of those. A and B, let's look at A. High temperature, sounds reasonable. High wind speed and high humidity. And B says high temperature, high wind speed, and low humidity. In this case here, low humidity will cause a higher rate of transpiration than high humidity. So our answer here must be B. This one here shows a heart, and here we show there's a heart defect. So there's an opening here in the septum here. See here and here. See the opening in the septum. So we can see that we have the blood coming in the normal way here, coming up here, going to the lungs and going back from the lungs and then going into the aorta. So we ask why the heart defect might cause the baby to have poor growth. Well, A says blood flows to the lungs high pressure. That's not a bad thing, so it can't be A. Blood flows to the lung at low pressure, decreasing the rate of gastric change. That's a possible one. C, mixing the blood results in less oxygen. That's a possible one. And D, mixing of blood results in more glucoses. That's not possible. So already we can see A and D are not our answers, which leaves us with C and D. If you can see here, we can see on the arrows here that we have deoxygenated blood and the oxygenated blood mixing here. So in this case here, this is what we're looking for because we're seeing the mixing here. So the only one that really takes that into account is number C. So mixing of the blood results in less oxygen available for respiration. So here we have a diagram that shows the effect of vaccination. So we have the vaccination here, one, and then we have immune response here, and then we have something that provides long-term immunity and one that provides passive immunity. They ask which component is the memory cell. Well, the memory cell is here because the memory cells do this. They provide long-term immunity. So our answer here is D. Next one, what helps to keep the trachea open during breathing? There are cilias there, and there are the larynx. But what keeps the trachea open is it's made of cartilage. So it doesn't collapse. Our answer is A. So next one here is actually a little complicated. We have yeast doing both aerobic with oxygen and anaerobic respiration. So they ask for each molecule of glucose used in yeast, how many more molecules of carbon dioxide are produced by aerobic with oxygen compared to anaerobic? And we have to remember, by aerobic respiration, we have 6 CO2 produced, and by aerobic, we have 2 CO2 produced. So we're left with 4 CO2, which gives us the answer here being C. So this requires, remember the formula both for anaerobic and aerobic respiration. In a healthy human, in which blood vessel will you find the lowest concentration of urea? Well, it's something coming straight from the kidney, and since the renal vein, D here, comes straight from the kidney, we will expect this one, because it's just been through filtration, to have the lowest concentration of urine. The next one here, I actually added something that wasn't in the paper. Because we are told that we have a specific eye condition here that causes a permanent contraction of the ciliary muscles. I just took here and added this here from the syllabus because we need to remember this one here. When the cilia muscles here are contracted, as we see here, then our ligaments will be slack and then the lens will be thicker. Okay, so we can already see here, it can either be A or B because C and D says it's taut. So we can see here it's slack, so it has to be either A or B. And as the lens here is thicker, we will probably see more refraction. So our answer here will be B. This is one of those questions that's a little more complex and show the difference between extended and core. This is another one where I think it's easiest to look at which statements are wrong. So we told the liver converts glucoses into the large molecule glucagon. Nah, it's not A. The liver releases the hormone insulin when blood glucose is too high. Yes, insulin is released, but not by the liver. Okay, the pancreas does not respond to an increase in blood glucose concentration. It does, so it can't be this one either. The pancreas responds to a fall in blood glucose concentration by increasing the release of glycogen. Yes, this one is correct. So here again, we have to, I think it's easy to see which one it's not, and then go for this one. In the dark, plant shoots grow upwards and the roots grow downwards. Now this is due to gravity, not photo. So already here we see it can't be A and B because they don't talk about gravity. So our options here are C and D. And has it anything to do with phototropism? No, because it's in the dark, so it can't have anything to do with this one. So the only one who has a yes to gravity and a no to photo is C. So C will be our answer. This one here is one where it's important to read the question. The question is, what is the reason why antibiotics should only be used only when essential? Now, the answer here, many will say, oh, antibiotic use increases natural selection of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. But that's not what they're asking. What is the reason why it should only be used when essential? Well, if it's only used when it's essential, then it will reduce the natural selection of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So in this case here, our answer is D. So they're actually asking the question opposite of how they'll normally ask it. So the wording is important. So now we're getting to the questions about sexual and asexual reproduction and reproduction in plants. And here we're talking about self-pollination here. And we ask which row describes self-pollination. It's important when we got one of these questions, only mark A, B, C, or D. Don't start marking which one in here is true, which I've seen some students do. So we see here pollen transferred from an antler to a stigma of a flower of a different plant. Now, this is self-pollination we're talking about. So it can't be A or D because self-pollination is the same plant. So already here we can see A and D is out of the question. Okay, and then we can see here that this one here says pollen transferred from the antler to the stigma of a different flower of the same plant. That is true in self-pollination. So that makes B possible. And since C doesn't have it, our only possible option here is B. The next one here shows terms used to describe sexual reproduction. Which terms are only used when describing sexual reproduction in plants? Well, male gametes are used in everyone. Female gametes used in everyone. Ovule, well, that's pretty much plant. Ovary, used in everything. Filament, that's plant. Fertilization, used in everything. Haploid, used in everything. Okay, so it's 3 and 5. So we need to find the answer, not just here, but here. Which one contains 3 and 5? And that is D. This one here is one of the more complicated questions, and they ask about, okay, which statement correctly describes the effect of a hormone in the human menstrual cycle that lasts for 28 days. Now, to make this, I want to say easier, but to make it possible here, I've got in here and I've taken the figure from the textbook. So again, the figures in the textbook are important. So they first say FHA causes maturation of an egg up to day 21. We can see FSA here peaks at day 14. So nah, this one it can't be. LH stimulates the release of an egg on day 14. Well, on day 14 here, we see a peak on LH here, and we see follicular phase ending here, so that's a possible one. Estrogen maintains the uterus lining between 14 and 28. Well, we see here between 14 and 28, we see a drop here in estrogen, so that one it can't be. And progesterone causes the repair and thickening of the uterus lining between day 4 to 14. Well, from 4 to 14 here, we see that progesterone is low. So it can't be that one either. Which leaves us with B as our possible answer. This was one of the more complicated ones here. The next one is more easy actually. What is the main hormone responsible for the development of male secondary sexual characteristics? It is testosterone, which is the one that causes male to look male. So we've got three more questions here about DNA, stuff like that. First one, which term is defining for length of DNA that codes for protein? That's a definition, and that is a gene. So that one's a little easier. 30. Which statement about sex chromosomes is correct? Again here, let's look at which one it can't be. They say men and women can inherit characteristics controlled by the genes of the X chromosome. Well, that's possible because men are XY and women are XX. The most general one. I know there's others, but just go to general here. Okay, men and women can inherit controlled by the Y chromosome. Well, no, because women don't have it, so that one it can't be. Only men can inherit characteristics controlled by the X chromosome? No, because both men and women have it. And only women can inherit characteristics controlled by the genes of the Y chromosome. That one's wrong as well, because Y is on the male. So that leaves us with the only possible one being A. One here which shows cell division methodic, and here we see how much DNA there is here, and here we say we have half the amount of DNA, and here we have the double amount of DNA. Where will cell be dividing? Well, we've doubled the DNA here, and then we do the cell division here. So the answer will be D. So we're told here a man with a blood group A and the genotype I, and has a child with a woman who has genotype IB-IO. Okay, so let's do the Punnett squares here to make it easier. Remember, we go from a diploid to a haploid, so we only have one here. So we have the IA here, and we have the IO, and over here we have our IB, and here we have our IO. Okay, so here we have AB, here we have BO, here we have AO, and here we have OO. So that is 1 out of 4, which leaves us to the answer that is 0.25 or 25%. 33 here talks about genetic variation in populations. And already here, as I often say, start about finding the one who's wrong. They say mitosis here. Okay, so already then here we know that can't be either of those because we have to look at meiosis when we look at genetic variation. So this one says meiosis, random mating, and asexual reproduction. Well, that won't lead to much variation, but meiosis, mutation, and random mating, well, that will lead to variation. So our answer here is A. The next one here is quite easy. We have a food chain that shows how energy transfer to a human. And they ask, well, where did the energy in the lettuce come from? Well, our lettuce is our producer, so of course it's the sun which gives energy here, so it's C, our sun. The next one here is actually formulated a bit strange. They say the process listed affect the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, increased deforestation, increased tree planting, decreased fossil fuel, and increased fossil fuel. Now, here comes a good question. Which of these processes increases the concentration of CO2? Let's look which one can it be. 1. Increased deforestation. Yes, that would lead to more CO2. Increased tree planting. No, that removes CO2. Decreased fossil fuel combustion. That will reduce CO2. And increased fossil fuel. Well, that will be the one. But to get the point, then we have to go in and say, okay, which one contains 1 and 4? Well, that is B. So we mark this as our answer and we get the point. The next one here asks which organism can be the source of energy for decomposers? Well, decomposers can both eat producers, herbivore and carnivores if they die, and the only one who has all three of them is A. The next one here, I actually just taken the text here from the syllabus because this can be good to think about the difference between community, ecosystem, population. Um, so in this case here, we're told a coral reef contains species such as spotted coral, sponges, seahorses, and whale sharks. These species interact with each other and are affected by temperature, salt concentration, which are abiotic factors. So in this case here, we can say it's an ecosystem. It contains a community of the organisms and their environmental interacting together. So in this case here, this is what we're talking about. So our answer will be B, ecosystem. So the last questions here comes down to what can cause an increase in the size of rabbit population? More disease, well, that will cause a decrease. So it can't be that one. An increase in available food, yeah, that'll go up. That might be an answer. An increase in pollution, well, that will probably decrease population. Increase in predators, that will decrease. So our only option here is B. How do eutrophication lead to the death of fish? A sudden increase in number of bacteria. Well, there can be increased bacteria, but they're not pathogenic, so no, not this one. Algae respire instead of photosynthesis. Yeah, it can. I won't go for that one. Decomposed bacteria lower the oxygen concentration in the water. Yeah, that sounds very likely. Fertilizers reduce the availability of nitrates. They actually increase, so it can't be this one. So our answer here is C. The last one here shows a bacterial cell. Which cell structure makes bacteria useful in genetic modification? Many people will say D because they look at the DNA, but it's actually B, the small plasmid pieces here, which makes it useful for genetic modification. So our answer here are B, C, and B.